to edition 86, part 2 of our Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because of mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing some in prison.
Yes.
Part 2.
Part 2 of Guy Georges. We have done something a bit different with this podcast. Love to hear your feedback. So we recorded the first episode ages ago. We held on to it, edited it and everything, and then waited till we record the second one so we can release them all at the same time. Because sometimes what happens is something is a multi-parter. We record it, and then as soon as we can do the next one, we record that. But we are busy bitches. So sometimes there's a bit of a gap, and then it's like, when's the next part coming out? When's the next part? Or I wait and binge them. So we thought we'd save it up and drop it. Yes, we're young. Drop it all at the same time. Be interested to know what you think about that, guys. Whether you want them as and when they're recorded, or whether you want them gimme, save them all and let you binge them.
One thing I wish people would stop saying is caught up with all the episodes now. Well, it's not a series. Secondly, that's how you choose to listen. Like, do you know what I mean? Just because you found this 6 months ago and now you've caught up in your words. That's a bloody series.
Oh, so when people go, binged it all, when's the next episode out? That kind of thing. Yeah.
You're listening peccadillos. That's up to you. It's caught up. You're not caught up on anything. Everything's very American, isn't it? Everyone thinks they're American. That's what
I just said dropped. Like, they're not alone.
Yeah, I chose to respectfully ignore that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't fucking know.
I get it. I totally get it. Where you, oh God, the yawning. If I could have my yawn chemically removed, you know, you can get your like armpits Botoxed so you don't sweat.
Oh yeah, there's a guy that I know who had a twitch. Like a twitch in his eye. He had but he had Botox to stop the twitch.
There's going to be loads of comedians now being like, yeah, I had a twitch across my forehead and just at the corners of my eyes, and that's why I got all that Botox. Yeah, so if I could have my yawn removed, I would absolutely have it snipped out. And you know what? I think because I've just said the word yawn, it's going to make me yawn. Do you know what? I just screamed my way out of a yawn and it stopped it.
You could do that every single time. Maybe that's what I'm doing when I'm annoyed.
You're not much of a yawner.
I'm not. Yeah, it's a funny one. That I don't really yawn.
I wish it was like farts, where there was like a certain amount a day. You know, it's like whatever 50. Although when you hear about that, it's like meant to be like 15 farts on average a day. That seems like fucking loads.
Oh, I find it so juvenile that human beings do that.
Really?
So stupid, isn't it? Like, here's this noise and this smell that comes out my bumhole. It's so pathetic.
But
it's
also,
pathetic.
It's only pathetic because we have made bumholes, noises and smells funny. If it was just like a flower that came out your ear 15 times a day,
yeah,
you wouldn't be like, tee-hee. We've given all that.
I just think that it's... Imagine it, aliens would just think... This is why, you know, aliens probably have come here to have a look, and they're just like, nah, these people, like, laughing. You know, they laugh at a noise that comes out of a bumhole.
Yeah. Well, I think they've, like, intercepted, like, one of my true and deepest, profoundest hatreds, Bodger and Badger, on a satellite and been like, I'm not going to go down to there with these fucking maniacs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are these fucking idiots doing?
Yeah, because they'll be like, either this is a documentary, or whatever the word for it is in their language, and these people are insane, or worst case scenario, this is a comedy, and even worse, it's aimed at children. And either way, we don't want to be down there.
Yeah, not for me. Thank you very much.
Speaking of not for me, I went on holiday to Edinburgh. Wonderful. My partner and I had like 2 days there. So yeah, we went up there, stayed in the hotel that we stayed in when we did our live show up there, Rachel. Mm-hmm. And went and hit all the Chazza shops in Morningside. Absolutely incredible strip over there. And then we did the underground, the real St Mary's Close.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then we went on a ghost tour, but it wasn't running that night.
What the fuck is it with those ghost tours, man?
Oh my, don't start.
Are they actually ghosts?
It's a ghost company that's basically money laundering. And then we went to the Surgeons Hall Museum is it West Nicholson Street?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I've been.
It is wild. They basically got a history of surgery. Fine. They've got a museum of pathology. They've got this one bit that's basically do you want to see all the fucking weird shit we have in jars?
Yeah, and there's too much weird shit.
Yeah, it's like when you go to, when you go to a deli in another country and you're like, ugh. I'm thinking especially somewhere like Hungary or something like that, where they'll just pickle anything.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And so it was just like a wall of spines at one point.
I don't, because I've been in. I mean, I've got a bit of a weird thing about spines anyway. I'm a bit about them. But I went a couple of years ago in Edinburgh, and by the time I was sort of about 3/4 of the way around, I had a headache because of all the brain bits. And I got to a point where I was like, do you know what? You don't have to have everything out. Some of these things could just be left in storage. Some of this stuff shouldn't even... Why are you showing me? It's like, a toddler just shows you everything. I'm not fucking interested, mate. Honestly, it makes me feel fucking sick. And then because I was I felt squeamish, and I started to go a bit further, and I started thinking, for £1 million, would you take a swig of that formaldehyde that's in that? I know. It's awful, isn't it?
It is awful. I find it tough, and so growing up we had little jars of something that smelt very weird. I now know it's formaldehyde, but we had little jars of formaldehyde with stuff in them because my mum used to be a riding instructor, and she used to teach people this is a worm and this is how you get rid of it and this is what it would look like. And so she'd have these different worms from horses' guts in jars of formaldehyde as a teaching aid.
Ugh.
Very strange. Only little ones. I mean literally 3-inch high jars. So I was sort of familiar with that world because I used to go and fucking freak myself out and look in there. And then this was a whole nother level because I can kind of deal with the things you expect, a spine, etc. But then they just get into fucking mad shit. So they have an amputated arm with a compound fracture. So it's a bone poking out a wrist. And you're like, why does that need to be in a jar? What are we learning from that? And then it's fucking mad shit. My partner did not cope well at all. I walked through into one of the other little rooms, and he was leaning against the banister that looks down into the central bit of it with his head down and his arms above his head. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Oh, it just looks at..." There was a mole the size of a dinner plate, and he tried to look away, and as a palate cleanser, there was a tit that had burst open in 2 places. And he was like, "I can't do this."
It's too much, isn't it? I mean, for people like us that fucking love that shit as well. I remember going around and I was going, yeah, I get it now. Fine. And then there's all these poor kids that have died as children in the late 1700s, early 1800s. And this poor little bastard's dead. Let's strip his skeleton and make it into a fucking clock. Yeah. It's insane.
It really is.
I remember when I went, because obviously it was during the Fringe. I went in August and it was a hot day, so I'd been in there God, this is horrible, and went outside into baking heat. Can someone just kill me? I just wanted fresh air. I wanted to be hosed down with cold water.
I bet you had such a faraway stare when you did your show that night.
Do you know what? I think I did it on... Did I do it on my day off? I think it was a good job I did it on my day off as well. Fucking hell.
I think they should have a bit with the worst bit through a ribbon curtain, in pawn shops.
Oh, yeah.
Old school sex shops that's okay, the weird shit's behind this.
And they should get the guy to go, come in. I think, because you have to pay to go in, don't you? But I remember thinking, I've got to pay to go in. But then I was like, do you know what? That did exactly what it said it was going to do. In fact, it did more. And for the money I paid, I feel strangely satisfied.
Yeah, and they won't let you take pictures either, which is... It's weird, because I'm like, are they not letting you take pictures because they don't want you to spoil it, or because there's too much weird shit and people would complain?
No, I think it's because it's human remains.
Oh, well, but it's fine to put them on a jar on a shelf. Fuck off.
I mean, the thing is, it's in there, though, I get the same feeling thinking about there that I do about toilet brushes. It's gross, isn't it? But it's a good museum. But it is fucking disgusting, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a testicle with a tumour in it, with hair in it. And there was also like someone with a hairball on their stomach, so it was the exact shape of a stomach, but it was all hair, which was really something under.
Do you know what? I think I've blocked a lot of this out.
Sorry.
So I think I remember going, I remember being in there, I remember the feeling. It's like that saying, you know, people won't remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm sitting here at my fucking desk with just my eyes closed and my hand over them. I'm having some sort of awful flashback to it. Would I go again? Yes.
Why do you get headaches when you talk about brains?
I don't know. Years ago, there's an exhibition at the Science and Industry Museum in Manchester about the brain. And I was like, oh, great, I'll go and have a look at this. Take my own brain with me. And honest to God, I got the worst headache I've had in my life, and I felt physically sick about halfway around. I was like, I've got to leave it. I don't know what it is. I hate brains, and I don't. And spines and brains. You know what it is? I think it's because they're so vital.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I get this weird thing as well. You know, sometimes you can feel your heart beating. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, when you just remember that you're like a sack of meat with some shit inside.
It's disgusting, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's what a fart is. That's like, don't forget you're a sack of meat. That's what it is. It's a little reminder. It's a tap on the shoulder to go, don't forget what you are, mate. Yeah. You're a bagpipe stuffed with organs.
It's like if when Barack Obama might have been sitting there thinking, I'm the president of the United States of America. And then he just feels, oh, I'm just a sack of meat, aren't I?
But it is a humbler, because, yeah, Barack Obama would be like, oh, my God, look, like, what I've come from, look what I've achieved, look, you know, I champion the community now, and I'm, like, in the highest office in the world, and then he'll bend down to tie his shoe and accidentally fart, and he'll be like, but I'm still a human, I'm still a meat sack.
Oh, God.
Are you at the age, I mean, you wouldn't talk about this, but, like, I'm definitely at the age now where I am less in control of my farts.
I hate anything about bodily functions. I honestly,
You're such a fucking Victorian woman about some stuff.
I get so deeply embarrassed about things like that.
I absolutely love that you will stuff a cock up your ass, but you won't have a conversation about farts.
I just hate it. Like, I just feel... I find people that talk about that and, you know, things like shitting, I'm like, oh, grow up, will you absolute fucking child. It's so... I'm so glad that there isn't a lot of comedy about breaking wind.
I mean, there is. I think it's just sort of preschool stuff, right?
Maybe I'd block it out. It's just not I don't find it palatable.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Guy Georges.
We struggle with this, not just because it's absolutely awful, but for something that was so recent in a country with a similar sort of news setup to us. There is scant details on the victims. Yeah,
it's. I'm very surprised because it isn't long ago at all. I mean, I think this was yesterday because I still think it's the 90s.
Yeah,
it's weird. So the recap we'll do for you is that Guy Georges had been in prison for 10 years.
Yeah, he'd been in prison for 10 years after attacking someone, right?
Yeah, that's right. He was meant to report to police on his parole conditions. He was meant to report to police every night.
He was also let out early, so he was a well-behaved prisoner, and he was deemed to be sort of rehabilitated. So instead of serving 10 years, he was let out after 7, which is obviously still a long time, but it is less than he was meant to be in prison for. So he's let out in 1991, and as you say, part of his thing is he needs to sign in with his probation officer every night, which is quite a common thing. But in January of 91, he broke that parole.
24th of January. He thinks, do you know what, I'm going to go to Paris.
Which We've all done it.
Yeah, I know, which he knows very well. I have to say as well, I found this out about him, that he's living sort of in these squat places. He actually called himself Joe when he lived in the squat, so he knew that area quite well. He was getting sort of involved with sort of, you know, left-wing politics and stuff like that. I think he just liked the feeling of belonging, didn't he, really? But one of the things that he used to do, he used to lie about his criminal behaviour. So he told people that he'd been in prison for armed robbery, and he told... this is a strange thing. He hated skinheads and homosexuals.
What?
Very polarised there.
Yeah. Well, do you know what I was thinking when you said, like, oh, he's, in squats and he's left-wing politics? I'm like, how could you live in a squat and not be left-wing? Do you know what I mean? How could you be all, like, homeless or no fixed abode and not be like, the system's broken, we should share what we have? But I bet there is. I bet there's some right-wing people. But then it's cherry-picking, right? Because I think sometimes with some of I used to work with homeless people in Manchester, some of them do believe that rhetoric of, like, the reason they're homeless is because a Muslim has taken their council house, which is obviously not true. So maybe it's that weird thing of, like, I mean, it's the 90s as well. We're just coming out of, like, the AIDS, well, we never came out of the AIDS crisis, but, like, the peak of it. So maybe it was much more normal to be homophobic then. Early 90s, that feels right.
Maybe it was just a cunt, mate. I mean,
maybe he's a cunt.
that could be.
Look at me trying to be, like, fucking empathetic and give it, like, a social. What about that? And you're like, no, mate. Let's call a cunt a cunt.
Yeah, exactly. So France in that time, I do think, had higher levels of, like, homophobia and racism and stuff like that. I don't think France was as, like, hey, we're all French, c'est la vie. I don't think it was as. I don't think the stereotype of the French is as accurate sometimes as. I mean, people are people, aren't they? That's the bottom line.
But then I would have thought Paris would be more progressive because, like, large cities tend to be by nature of their diversity. Speaking of calling a cunt there, you just reminded me about that message that I sent you last night. So I played touch rugby on a Monday with a group of lovely people. And one of them, I think they found out what I do now. One of them came over and said, oh, I listened to your podcast, the one that we did with Maggie Nogu, and was saying how much they enjoyed it. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And he was like, very Welsh guy, and he was like, oh, the girl that you do it with, I can't remember her name, sorry. I said, oh, it's Rachel. He said, yeah, Rachel. He went, she will just say whatever comes into her head, won't she? I was like, yeah, she will. And he's like, I've never heard anything like it. My wife came in and I was like, Mad, listen to this.
do you know what my favourite thing was recently? So obviously, when we were at Christmas when we did the podcast, and I was like, I'm fucking sick of people that are doing my head in. There was like 3 things that had happened that pissed me off. I did this voiceover that was on, I think it was on New Year's Eve or something. And it was on Channel 5, and it was Channel 5's most shocking interviews ever. And someone tweeted me and said, this guy tweeted me and said, just put Channel 5 on. And my husband's looked up from his paper and gone, is that the girl that was annoyed at everyone at Christmas? I was like, the only person who recognised my voice off that.
That's
was
so
someone who
funny.
just associated me with being fucked off.
Isn't it weird when you hear your voice on something? So I watch, there's a few programmes I like to watch in the bath, just to myself. So, like, Ghosts is one of them. Sewing Bee's another one. In My Skin. They're things that I'm like, oh, don't need to watch this with my partner. I don't need to talk to him about it. There's just things that I enjoy. So I had Ghosts on, and I did the voice over things for Toast of Tinseltown. So you put it on and, sometimes it automatically plays a trailer and then you're like, ugh, because suddenly your voice is like coming out your lap. Do you find that? I find it really discombobulating. Do you?
The only one that I used to get like, oh, fucking hell, was the tea advert with the cat, because there was a time when it was fucking on all the time. So TV would be on in the background and it'd make me jump. So, I'd be doing something, and then the advert would come on, and I'd hear myself go, like, oh, go on, nice cup of tea, and it'd make me fucking jump, and I'd go, oh, it's me. Because it's so weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember I was watching The Simpsons or something one Sunday afternoon, and it came on, and I'm like, I don't know, it's weird, because you're like, that's me, that. It's dead weird, isn't it?
Yeah, especially because I can hear myself clearly either doing like a phone voice or a voiceover voice, which aren't too dissimilar.
Yeah,
so instead of being like me and my sort of like muddled accent, it's like Toast of Tinseltown. Like I'm giving it full voiceover bullshit, and that makes me fucking cringe.
See, I've been quite lucky with that because I've always got hired on the basis of my voice. Like, no one ever asked me to posh it up. I said once, like, I was saying the word cookie, as in the biscuit, and they were like, can you say, I'm like, and I just went, you gave me the job on the basis of my accent, and now you don't like the way I'm saying it. Just tell me how you want me to say it. Don't fuck me about.
Oh, so you were saying like cookie?
Yeah, so it'd be like, cookie. Yeah. Can we not have... I'm like, just tell me. You do it, and I'll do it how you want me to do it. You're paying me to be here. I will do what you want.
Cocker. It's so cool, though, how you say certain words. I think it's absolutely lovely.
Thanks, mate.
Well, you know what? Sometimes I forget to praise you.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. That's my real voice, by the way.
Old Biggins there.
Oh, darling, would you like the full Mancunian? Would you? Yes, no problem.
Doing vocal warm-ups of it.
Where are we up to?
Noel Gallagher.
A Brit, a pop. Brit pop.
Bombing the Arndale. Bombing the Arndale.
The IRA.
Oh, we're gonna have to fucking cut that.
Oh, it's fine. They won't be listening. Listen, I spent my teenage years fucking scared to death of the cunts. So
Really?
yeah, I used to be like, because it was such a prevalent thing. I was so frightened of the IRA. Like, genuinely, I used to have nightmares about, like, because it always was the lead story on the news. I mean, like, now you don't really have anything about Northern Ireland on the news. I think Northern Ireland is pretty much forgotten as part of the UK, isn't it?
Oh yeah, they're awful for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be the lead story on the news every night, the IRA. Every single night. And yeah, I used to have fucking nightmares about them.
Oh, I'm sorry I got you that balaclava then.
Anyway, come on, we must crack on.
Do you know what, we've been doing this like half an hour, we've barely spoken about this, it's my fault. So we get to his first murder. So, like we say, he breaks parole. January 25th, was it?
24th of January 1991.
Apologies.
So this is where he decides, like, I'm not going to go to the police. I'm going to find a woman and stalk her. So Pascal Escoffier, who was 19 years old, she'd gone for some ice cream to celebrate getting a new job, I think it was. And he saw her and he decided to follow her because this is what he enjoyed doing. He stalked her for a while. And as she was walking home, this is all we've got his side of the story, by the way. He says he walked alongside her and pulled a knife out and she said, "What do you want?" And he said, "You." Which I don't believe in.
No.
Because no one is that quick in a moment.
I also think being a serial killer is like being a stand-up comedian in that you get to rewrite all your own stories in a Partridge-esque. And needless to say, I had the last laugh. I just don't think they would be that quick thinking to come out with, like, a line from a movie, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So he then gets into her apartment with her, he ties her up, he rapes her, and then he starts having a good old look through the flat, going through drawers and cupboards and things. Now, as he walks past her, she kicks him. That made him angry, this is what he said. And it was at that point he decided he was going to kill her and he cut her throat. He doesn't just leave then, he stays in the flat, or apartment, if you're American. He reminds me a lot of the Golden State Killer and BTK to a degree. He made himself...
Colin Island as well would just sort of sit around, wouldn't he?
He would, yeah. He made himself a sandwich, he had a beer, had a cigarette, and stayed around in the flat for a little while.
Yeah.
And then he left, but he went back to prison for parole violation then. But he wasn't linked to this murder at all.
Do you think it was because it was far away from where he was? So he, like, jumps and goes into Paris, so they were looking for someone in Paris, not someone from out of town.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that a violent criminal who has not checked in with his parole officer and then a young woman that's killed, you think that you'd link the two, because it's not a common occurrence, is it? It's not going to happen 5 times in one night, that is it?
No, you'd hope not.
That's like a one-time thing happening.
We don't know much about her. You know, she was 19. We know she had a bright future. She was studying at the Sorbonne University, which is obviously, like, one of the best. But that's it. It's really sad that, like, obviously such a promising young woman, but it's also a fucking legend for being tied up by this fucking monster and still going, you know, I'm going to fucking boot him if he walks past me. I don't think I would have the resolve to be like, fuck him, I'm going to kick him. But we don't know anything about her.
No.
And I also hate that, like, it's just that thing, isn't it, when her last actions and her last words are defined by
someone
killer.
else. Yeah.
He
went back to prison. He was released on the 22nd of April 1992. He came out of prison. He attacked a woman. Women's names in this are often protected I don't know if that's, maybe they wanted anonymity or maybe the court just does it, I don't know. A woman named Eleanor D, and he was jailed for 18 months after that for the attack on her. But no one's linking him to the murder either at this point.
Well, because she escaped and then immediately went to the police and described him and then led to his capture. Because you would think at that point they're like, right, okay, hold on. We've got this guy. He's got a history of escalating violent crime of a sexual nature. He's bumped parole as soon as we've let him out, pretty much, on good behaviour. Mm-hmm. Then we've released him and he's immediately gone for a violent, sexually motivated attack on a woman. We've still got work to do. Let's lock him up. But he only goes away for a very short time. And as soon as he comes out, he just gets more efficient. So he puts a bag together and
he's had time to think while he's in prison, hasn't he?
He's literally planning, like, oh, if I could have my time again. And so he's got a rucksack, and in it he has a knife, and he also has rolls of duct tape that he will use to bind his victims up.
Got a bit of Israel Keys about him now as well, hasn't he?
Yeah. Ugh.
On the 17th of January 1994, this was 2 weeks after he was released, Catherine Rocher, who was 27 years old, he raped and murdered her. So this is 2 weeks after he was released.
Yeah. He was so creepy with it as well. There was like an element of like home invasion or invading of space anyway. So like Catherine was getting into her car and he like comes up really quickly with a knife and attacks her there. And he basically rush the women when they would get to the door of their flats or apartments with a knife and be like, and sort of insinuate that he was going to rob them, and then he'd rape and kill them. And he just fucking dumped her body on the street.
Fucking hell. Awful.
But also it's awful that we can't tell you more than that. Like, I can't tell you anything about her.
Yeah. Well, it's like the next one, 13th January 1994. I guess as well because these women... I mean, you can maybe understand why there's not a lot of information on these women because they were kept anonymous, but you would think there would be more on the murder victims. So just that murder on the 7th of January. On the 13th of January 1994, Annie L. was attacked on her patio in her home, wasn't she?
Yeah. So she was a French radio host. She had, like, some profile. She was having a cig on a patio. He jumps over, rapes her, and absolutely batters her as well.
Ugh.
He's fucking horrible.
November 1994, this is the third murder that we know of. Elsa Benade, she was 22 years old. He raped and murdered her as well.
Well, I think that considering the dates of the other ones, I think that these are all happening around about January, and he was doing them in 6 days in between. I don't think that he waited. He was like, you know what, I'll be fine now till November. I think there was absolutely other women there.
Well, you know
absolutely.
He slept rough in places like Amsterdam and London as well.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, so I think there's probably...
God bless the Eurostar.
Yeah, I think there's probably attacks that he's done elsewhere.
100%. Sorry, just on Elsa. With her, she lived in an apartment with an underground car park. And so she's in there, and that's where he catches her. I've never been in an underground car park where I haven't thought, I'm going to get murdered here.
Yeah, there's such
a vibe.
Yeah. They're scary, aren't they?
Really scary?
Really scary.
Do you think it's because they're used in so many films for, like, you know, scenes where people are jumped?
Yeah, I think that because of that, and you always imagine a woman in high heels walking along, don't you? And somebody hiding behind a car and her being frightened. And
then getting in the car and the person's in the back of the car.
Yes. It's,
fucking hell.
They are genuinely scary, aren't they?
Yeah.
On the fourth murder, again, that we know of, was December the 9th, 1994. This was Agnes Niekamp. She was Dutch, she was 32 years old, and again, she was raped and murdered.
Yeah, and killed in her own home. Now, around this time, the press start clocking on to the fact that these women are dying because they're all dying in the same district of Paris. So they run a story saying killer in East Paris. So there is sort of some press attention. I think women in that particular area are starting to be much more cautious. But then it goes quiet for a bit, for about 6 months.
There's a couple of attacks though. 13th of January 1994, a woman called Annie L was attacked. And then in June 1995, Elizabeth O was attacked. Now this is the first time someone gives a description of him.
Yes.
Now, I feel really sorry for this woman.
Yeah,
because
I do.
she gave a description that wasn't accurate. I mean...
Well, it was quite vague, wasn't it?
Yeah, someone's attacked her. I mean, it must be very difficult to be like,
yep.
you know, this is what it looks... It's just a horrible scenario to have to do.
He also went to lengths to sort of disguise who he was. He was... Because he was quite good at not leaving DNA and things like that at the scene. He wasn't blagging his way through it. He was going to lengths to sort of hide his identity. So the fact that she's always brought up in this case as being like, well, it was a vague description and she was shown a picture of him and then she didn't recognise him.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
like, she's still a victim, you fucking arseholes.
I feel so bad for it. I mean, Scotland Yard did a photo of it as well, and apparently it looked nothing like him.
Right.
Because, of course, he's a black guy. The photo of it looked more Asian origin. Elizabeth, this is so sad as well, that as time went on, the other victims' families, they felt bad for her as well, because she felt really guilty about this. During a meeting at one point with the other families, Elizabeth was in a wheelchair, and they said that people assumed it was from the attack, but this is what happens to this poor woman. She went on holiday to Greece to fucking forget about the fact that she'd been attacked by this guy, and then sort of jumped into the sea, dived off a rock and was paralysed from the waist down.
Oh my fuck.
Awful is this? Like, it's one of the saddest, most horrific things I've read, because you know what really pisses me off? That wouldn't have happened had he not attacked her in the first place. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel so bad for her.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like not that obviously wheelchair users can't have brilliantly fulfilled lives, but you're like, she just wanted to sort of like try and heal herself and get some time, and now her life has radically changed and been, let's be honest, because of how like ableist the world is, being limited, and all because of this fucking arsehole.
That is recording.
Lovely. Do you want to explain to the viewers?
Well, we need to start with the disclaimer.
Well, no, because we've already done it. This is halfway through another episode.
Fucking hell, of course it is. We had a break of several days.
Yeah, about a week. Tuesday.
It was on a Tuesday, yeah. A few days. So we've come back into the podcast.
Yes.
So if we sound different, it's because we're in a different location. We're on my sofa, recording like the old days, actually.
Yeah, completely naked on a sofa.
With some butlers in the buff.
Oh my
God, they're
God.
so embarrassing, aren't they?
They are.
You know what? Like, fine, do what you want, but you know when women do like sexy things, there is no threat to anyone, is there? I mean, let's go and watch these male strippers. I don't think they ever feel in danger.
I don't know. I think that like you can get like hen dos. I bet Magic Mike have had a thing where they're like, did you see that woman put a finger up my bum? I actually think that women will be as feral.
Or like...
because with men it's like, sit on your hands. You know, there's rules. Whereas it's like, I think they think, because you can overpower them and it's fine.
Or like, butlers in the buff is a weird thing. Like, can you put your bum away where there's food? It's highly... No, I'm sorry. I fucking hate stuff like that. Walking around, there's fecal matter everywhere. Like, well, there's a thing that if you sleep naked, and I hate people, and I've said this before, there was a study that says that you will be breathing your own fecal matter. So there's a butler in the buff going around with these vol-au-vents. You're getting a molecule of shit with your chicken and mushroom.
Is it vegan though? Oh God, that's so
Depends
horrible.
what they've been eating.
That's so horrible.
I hate it.
Yeah, because we've all farted at work. There's absolutely no way that they're doing that job and not squeaking one out.
I get so embarrassed about stuff like that. Like, I once saw a male stripper at a hen party in a pub in Radcliffe years ago. And I wasn't at the hen party, I was just in the pub, and this guy was like dancing with his radio. He even brought his, this was before fucking phones with music. And he was dancing. And there was just a load of blokes stood around slow clapping him.
Oh.
And he at one point you could tell he was really uncomfortable, and the women were going, woo! And he had like a banana and cream in his pants, and they were eating the banana. And like then he just left. I felt really sorry for him. He sort of scurried to his car with his radio and...
when we filmed the comedy bus. This is so weird because it's like the start of an episode. So we'll crack on in a second. When we filmed the comedy bus, there was a scene where it was back at Tom Allen in Bromley, and it was all about how he'd never had a house party. So he had a party, and they got him a stripper dressed as a police officer. So he's like, I always just thought the police would turn up if I had a house party. So this person's like, are you the owner of the house? And then it's a stripper. So Tom gets like this male stripper.
What was his reaction? Was he
was well, we were all like, oh, this is funny. And then the guy properly got his cock out. And we were like, holy fucking shit. And he was sort of like waggling like, on Tom's tweed suit. And then, so that happened. It was like, we were all like losing our minds because we did not expect that. Susie Ruffles like, oh my God. Yeah, it was wild. And then, so afterwards he sort of gets dressed and we sort of like, okay, cut on that. And then we're setting up for something else. And just Tom's so lovely. And he's like, so have you had to come far tonight? And he's just having like lovely chit chat. And he's like, oh, lovely. So is it, what do you do? I suppose you just clock on in the nights. And he's having like lovely small talk with the guy who's just rubbed his penis against
rubbed
his
his
suit.
piss stick all over his nice tweed jacket.
Piss
I
stick.
hate anything, like, it's so unhygienic. It's so unhygienic.
Yeah, but you're also not going to eat off the thigh of your suit, are you? It's
Yeah,
fine.
but it's still there, isn't it? I bet you had to take that to be dry cleaned. You're too polite to ask him to pay for it. You had to come far. That's so funny. Did you drive here?
Yeah, I think it was. It was like, which road did you take? yeah, because otherwise the one-way system in Bromley's an absolute nightmare.
That's a really good Tom Allen impression.
He's so lovely. What a nice man.
Well, I can't see what we were talking about last before we had this little mini
Souchon?
hiatus. Was I ain't got a fucking clue now. A lot has happened in the week. What's gone on? Where are we up to?
What, on the podcast?
Guy Georges, yeah.
Guy Georges, yeah.
I'm sick of him, if I'm quite honest.
Yeah,
with you.
you've been saying that a lot. We've been trying to write this podcast for hours to finish off the end of it. There's been a lot of distractions, guys.
Well, for a start, your food.
You know what, Rachel? I'm too angry to even get into it. I've just had... Basically, Wagamama's have absolutely fucking shoved me up the brown pipe with their delivery tonight. It was an hour late. It was the wrong thing. And then they substituted my delicious side with a portion of something that was in the main. So I'm quite cross. Anyway.
You've just been saying that. Did you say the brown pipe?
Yeah.
I keep thinking, and this is terrible, and I do keep saying it out loud now, I feel like I'm being ripped off constantly, like with train tickets and stuff like that. I just keep going, shall I just bend over and open my arsehole for you? Like, shall I just bend over? Like, I said to Tim the other week, I was like, I am fucking sick of trains in this country. Shall I just get on the track, bend over and open my arsehole while they drive it into my arse? And he was like, just be so uncouth. I'm like, yeah, I fucking do. I'll just open my arsehole for you, shall I? Or you fuck me up it.
I think opening your asshole is literally one of the most, like, base, terrifying things a human can do.
Listen, it's when you resign to it, you know you're going to be fucked up the arse, so you bend over and make it easier for them.
Well, I've got a little story about that. This will probably have to come out. But so an actor I have met once, maybe twice, was talking about another actor that they worked with. And they were sort of like, you know, when they go into like council estates to find young, authentic actors,
okay,
and then can't actually deal with them.
Yeah.
So this girl was in it, and she's fucking mad. She's mad. So the director kept like sort of like over directing her and sort of bossing her about, and she was like, "Fuck off." And, you know, like, just being a dickhead. And she's like, I'm not fucking having this. And he's like, you've got to come back. We've got to finish the scene. And she dropped her trousers, bent over, and spread her asshole. And was like, fucking, fuck you.
Get a statue of this woman in every fucking city across the UK. Bent over, showing that arsehole. That speaks volumes. You know what? It says so much to me, that image. It says, no, I will not kowtow to your rules. Also, I'm sick of being fucked up the arse by you bastards. I love it. And what happened? Did they keep her in the...
Yeah, they couldn't sack her. So she just showed the innards of her arseholes to the director. I mean, I don't think she gets much work now.
I mean, what was the reaction?
Everyone... Well, because it was a lot of, like...
Is it something we would have seen?
Not the arsehole, but the people, yeah. So it's who told me. And it was like, do you remember
Okay,
and
yeah.
he's the sort of tall one, and then his
Right.
sister's in it, and she's fucking scared. She's like, I didn't know what the fuck to do, and she just bent over and spread her arsehole. And it was just because it was a mixer of like these kids that they'd sort of picked up from everywhere, and then some like errata kids who were like, oh my god, like just losing it because they'd seen a girl's arsehole.
Oh my goodness, have I got one of those? I've never wiped my own. Fucking hell. Anyway, that's
that'll
enough
have to come out.
That's enough bum chat.
Bum chat. So we
Welcome
are.
to bum chat.
You would be the host of that as well.
I don't want to be the host of bum chat.
So September 1997 is where we're up to. Basically, I think his crimes are really escalating. He's had sort of a 2-year break, although we don't think he has, and they're getting more frequent, and they are always violent.
Also, at this point, it has started to be reported in the press. You know, people are worried, people are frightened. One of the victims, Helen Finken, who was a Dutch girl who was raped and murdered by him, her mother had alerted the press and started, you know, saying that this isn't being reported enough. And she'd said as well that the police hadn't come to interview her daughter's neighbours until 23 months after she'd been murdered. The French police had a response to this. They said, we don't think this is a serial killer. Serial killing, it's an Anglo-Saxon thing. Which is like one of those awful T-shirts that gets advertised to you on like Facebook, because it's always Facebook, and it'll say things like a family name, like, yeah, it's a Smith thing, you wouldn't understand. Or like it's a Rachel thing, you wouldn't understand.
Is that the same shop that sells that hoodie that's like, my boyfriend's a little bit crazy?
Oh my God,
like,
that's insane.
Sure, he
that.
hits me.
Yeah,
yes, he tells me how he rations my meals. He's isolated me from my family, but he's also
and I'm not allowed my own money.
Yeah, he's pulled the landline off the wall. But he's a big, wonderful guy, and once you get to know him, he's absolutely brilliant. And it is my stupid face that makes him angry. It's fucking mad.
And he did buy me this jumper.
Yeah.
When I see those, I'm like, what on earth is going on?
Yeah.
I've seen some mad stuff like
it's a red flag you wear on your tits.
100%, like when you see those duvet covers with people's names on them, like
what?
I saw one on like, and it was like your name and your partner's name in a bed. It's like, who is that for?
Oh God, that's like the version of, do you remember in the 80s when people who had like
the
over their fucking what they call windscreens?
the windscreen.
Yeah,
I think I quite like them.
I think they're cute.
Yeah,
they're due a comeback,
cool.
aren't they?
Yeah,
we should get if we ever go on tour. We should get one of them.
We should definitely go. They're always green as well, weren't they?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love those. And the furry dice.
Have you ever seen a furry steering wheel?
Yeah, I don't like that. That's gross.
It's fucking disgusting. It's the most unhygienic thing next to a furry toilet cover, which was another thing.
An
for a
open arsehole is cleaner. Do you know, I meant to say this to you. Do you know, I've noticed this week, because I've been on a plane this week, but I've got a real thing. You know, when people like AMSR or whatever it's called. I like the you know, we all know that I like the feel of clothing patterns and stuff like that. I have a real thing, and I get like a sort of the hairs on my neck go up a bit, and I get a bit goosey. You know when they do the safety demonstration in a plane? Ooh, I love it. I love the way they touch the stuff and they pull the seatbelt, and then I'm getting a bit. Oh, look at my arms going all up. I don't know what it is. I get like.
All right, mate, you're gonna slide off the sofa.
No, it's not like it's not a sexy thing. It's like I just really like it. I like the way they go the seatbelt, and they do that, and then they put the thing on the toggle and they pull that, and then.
I think another aspect of ASMR that's appealing isn't it people taking extreme care over it?
I think that's what it is. It's like. And like also,
to like people who fold towels.
When you get in an Uber that's really clean as well, and the hands on the steering wheel, and you're like, he's going to wipe that down after this journey, just to, you know, finalise it, and it's fresh for the next person. I think that's what it is. I think it's when some I don't know. And I just love it the way they touch everything and fold it all up and put it back.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
It's like arousing, right? Without being like, it's stimulating without being like sexy.
I don't know what it is. It's sort of a sensation that I can't explain. It's not sexy or arousing. It's just like, I don't know. There's just something about it that the way they pull the elastic and pop it on the thing and all that. It's like, ooh, you do this every day, but you're doing it nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't do it for me, but it's nice you've got a hobby.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway,
so September 1996, you talked about that for so long.
I did, because I really enjoy it. And listen, that's why I always pay attention to the safety demonstration. Firstly, because I don't want to die. But secondly, because it also, this is quite funny, on a plane the other day, they said...
Is your dream safety demonstration where they do the toggle thing, they put the mask on, and then at the end of it, she just bends over and pulls her asshole apart? The exits are here, and most importantly, here.
When they say to you, now, are you okay sitting in an emergency exit seat? It's like, I'm absolutely fine sitting here, but don't fucking expect me to do something when this plane is going down, mate. I'm happy to sit here. Sure, I'll take the extra leg room even though I don't need it, but I'm not going to help.
I told you about this when I was on a plane most recently, and then one of the air stewards went over to a guy sat there and said, "Excuse me, sir, you're sat in an emergency seat. Are you okay to do that?" And he went, and everyone there was a big tension, and he went, "Yeah." But he was like too excited, so his voice cracked, and everyone was like, "We're going to fucking die. We're going to plough into the sea."
Finally.
So you meant to go like, "Yeah," but he went, "Yeah." And you just saw it in his face where he was like, "Oh, fuck this." And she just sort of silently walked away.
I told you I was on a plane and a guy refused, so I had to do it. And I was like, "You absolute fucking baby." He was like, And I went...
He could have had anxiety or something like that.
No, it was just a fucking pathetic excuse for a human being.
Right, you need to go to bed.
Yeah, I do. It's quite late, actually.
So, September 1997, Estelle F. He attacks her, jumps her, and he attempts to rape her, but she manages to escape. Now, there's a weird thing that on some of the accounts I've written that was like, well, and this Estelle escaping obviously riled him up because only a few days later he went on to murder someone else. And it's like,
so it's her fault, is it?
Yeah, it's unbelievable that they've tried to make it
all right, yeah,
Estelle's fault. So this was Magali Ciarotti. He was only 19 years old. He broke into her apartment and he raped her and then stabbed her to death.
She lived with her boyfriend as well, and her dad went mad with the grief from it because she'd been killed. She'd been getting ready to get married, and all the family was very excited. And then he used to visit her grave every single day. I mean, it's not often. There's not many sort of accounts of how people reacted to these murders, but that's just really fucking horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning when you can find the information.
Definitely. Although straight away I was like, well, she get married at 19.
Well, there is that.
Each their own. So 5 days later, he attacks someone else.
It's unbelievable, this.
Yeah. So this is Valerie L. He attacks her. Basically, she's on the stairwell on the way into her apartment block. Now, she manages to survive and get away from him. And then there's one final victim. So Valerie's on the 28th of October 1997. His final victim, Estelle Magol, am I saying that right?
Yep.
So she was murdered on November the 16th, 1997. She's only 25 years old. And he did what he does. He barged his way into her house and then he rapes her and he murders her. Now, this shouldn't have happened because, well, serial killing should never happen. But by this point, the police have 4 different DNA samples and they all match, but they're just not cross-referencing.
But also, this is bizarre because this isn't like someone travelling around somewhere like America doing this in different cities. These are all in the same
It's
place.
the West District of Paris.
You know, which isn't, by any accounts, huge as a city, is it?
No, it's not as big as London.
If this was happening, say, in somewhere as big as London, people would probably put them all into the same, put them under the same sort of umbrella, thinking, well, something's going on here. It's mad to think that all this was happening so close between these murders and these attacks, and they weren't thought of being done by the same person.
Yeah. It's basically referred to as a bungled operation in terms of the police work, and that they...
Bungle.
You were thinking of one from Rainbow.
I was thinking of bungle from Rainbow. Bungle is such a funny word.
It is. They failed to match up these DNAs. Obviously, you've got the backstory, but one of the murders was committed while he was still on parole, dodging prison. Now, it leads to this massive manhunt. In fact, the largest manhunt in French criminal history, because they finally put it together and go, fuck, Guy Georges matches all of these 4 DNAs. So they find him in Montmartre in the end. It's March 27th, 1998. And they've got fucking loads of evidence.
They arrest him in a pharmacy, don't they?
Yeah.
So 2 police officers notice him and then chase him into the pharmacy. And in a documentary that is on Netflix at the moment, there is a man who works in the pharmacy. It's a bit of archive footage, and he's talking about how Guy Georges was caught. And he's like, you know those things that you stand on in shops that look like Daleks?
Yeah.
Like a kick stool, that's what they're called, isn't it? He's just pointing at one of them for ages. Not really saying anything, just like, it was here. So they wrestle him to the ground, and that's how he's arrested. It's all very dramatic.
It is, isn't it?
But over in a flash.
Well, when they get there, because they have so much evidence, and they start interviewing him, he immediately confesses to 7 murders. And you think you'd show remorse, but while he's waiting for his trial, December 2000, he and 3 cellmates managed to escape from prison.
Well, they sawed through the cell back. Where'd they get a saw from in prison?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on there? I mean, you always imagine it being brought in a cake, don't you?
Yeah, a file, yeah.
I imagine that happened once, and that's the way we always imagine things.
Yeah, also I just think, again, sorry to go back to the theme.
Happened once in a cartoon.
Yeah, the theme of the episode, but is much more likely to be an asshole than a cake.
Oh, 100%. Have you seen those mini mobile phones?
No.
Have you not seen them?
No.
Tiny mobile phones.
Are they like those mini watches you used to wear as a ring?
Yes, they're like that. They're tiny little phones. I fucking hate those. I used to have one of them. It's horrible. Tiny little phones that are basically made for you to smuggle into prisons.
Really?
Yeah, Google image them, like mini mobile phones. They're tiny.
But also, what are you doing in prison that you need a phone for?
All kinds of drugs, contacting the outside world to get things brought in. I mean, come on, if people are... Hang on, how do you get the phone in the first place?
How'd you charge it?
This is raising more questions.
Yeah. There'll be someone listening to this who knows. Get in contact.
Yeah, there will be.
What do you use a phone for? I mean, maybe just not everyone just fucking doom scrolls Instagram all the time like me.
Well, this is true. I guess you have business on the outside that you need to sort out. Maybe you just want to speak to your mum.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. So, he and 3 cellmates escape and... Oh, fuck me.
Ever so boring, isn't it, a prison break?
Yes, shit. But they're immediately recaptured, so he doesn't actually manage to buy himself any freedom. Now, he's assessed by some psychiatrists, and they say, yeah, nothing wrong with him. He's fit to stand trial. Yeah, he's just a cunt. So the trial starts on the 19th of March in 2001. So recent, right?
Yeah.
I say it's so recent, it's not. It's fucking 20 years
ago.
Well,
everything 2000 feels like last week.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? It was some song that someone mentioned the other day, and I Googled it, and I was like, oh my God. It's 20 years old now. And it was something that I was like, I can't believe that song's 20. What was it?
There's stuff that happens where, like, you know, a film will be like, it's 20 years ago or something like that. And I'm like, oh, in my head, I still think, oh, I must catch that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, that'll come around to Bangor soon.
There's a new talkie out. I really need to go and see it.
Everyone's talking about Casablanca.
Have I told you about the picture of... Is it Dirk Bogart or Humphrey Bogart that's in Casablanca?
Yeah.
Into his bedroom at his parents' house, there's a still from Casablanca, and a picture of... Is it Humphrey? Humphrey Bogart. On the wall, like 2 pictures. And Tim was like, I didn't buy these, but my mum claims that I demanded to have them from Dunelm at some point. He said, why would I want them? He went, I never asked for them. I don't think I've ever seen the film.
I can't imagine Tim in a Dunelm, full stop.
I can't imagine his mum in a Dunelm either. She's not a Dunelm shopper. But it's just thinking whichever Bogart it is going with his hat on.
That's
like,
so strange.
I don't think even like Bogart's mum would have had that picture. It's like it's so weird. Anyway,
what's that noise?
I don't know. Someone was very kindly at the hour of 10:30 in the evening on a Sunday, just decided to start playing music quite loudly.
It's quite loud,
in an area where we are quite near. Heaven forfend people should want to go to bed or record a podcast.
I mean, this is on us, isn't it? So the trial starts 19th of March 2001. It lasts for 3 years.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Whatever.
Please
years.
don't say 3 years. I can't take any more.
No,
of it.
3 weeks. 3 weeks. It's a very quick trial. So there's 50 witnesses. That's a lot to get through in 3 weeks,
including 4 women who he had previously attacked.
Yeah, fucking hell.
There was also members of his foster family,
Yeah.
including his, at the time, 74-year-old mother, who gave evidence.
Yeah. So the prosecutors went in, they had DNA linking him to the crimes, they had a confession, and he's like, yeah, I'm not guilty. And they're like, babe, we've got a lot of evidence.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, that confession, the police tortured me and they beat it out of me, so that doesn't count. So his lawyer takes him aside and says, listen, mate, you're chatting shit here, and they will get you for this, and you'll get a more lenient sentence if you say guilty. He's like, no, I'm going to plead not guilty. So does. And after 8 days, he's like, oh, fuck this, I've changed my mind. Because there was so much evidence. So he switches it and says, okay, I'm going to plead to guilty. So he says yes to all the original murders and to the other attacks. And he breaks down into tears. He says, I just want the forgiveness of the victims' families. So on April the 5th, 2001, he is sentenced to life imprisonment. And he's basically given, I think, 38 years and 22 years before he's eligible for parole, which, if you do the maths, means next year he's up for parole. He was like, if you send me to prison, just so know that I won't serve my sentence because I'm going to kill myself.
Okay.
He basically, he kept threatening. Fucking hell. He kept threatening that he was going to commit suicide.
Right, and the prison he's in, though, is at Ensisheim Central House, which is a former convent. It's got 196 prisoners. It's got very high-profile prisoners in it as well. But apparently he quite likes it in there. Carlos the Jackal was in there. The only thing I know about Carlos the Jackal is that he was on the front of one of my favourite albums, a Black Grape album. And I had a big poster of it on my wall. But I don't know anything else about
Next to
Carlos
Humphrey
the Jackal.
Bogart, yeah.
Next to Humphrey Bogart. But apparently he quite likes it in there because he feels quite infamous in there. Like, he's getting a bit of attention. So he's like, oh, I'm in prison with all these, he gets he has the papers delivered every day. He has television, which is quite a normal thing. But you can imagine people going, you cannot read anymore. You cannot read in prison. You can't watch things. Take their eyes out and make them deaf. He gets visits from friends that he made in the squat still.
Really?
Yes. And they bring him pocket money, which is weird.
That's so
Where you going?
strange.
Popping out of B&M, are you?
Hold on, just before I go, bends over, opens his asshole, loads of coins fall out.
And a mobile phone.
Like
and a Bolivon.
Like those NatWest pigs. Just takes the plug out or falls out.
The warders like him.
Really?
Yeah, they do. They like him. They get on with him. They find him quite a model prisoner. And, get this, he believes he's better off in prison because he said he knows he's dangerous.
Well, this is it, that they said that they suggested, the judge said, I wish I could give you it with no parole. He says, you're always going to be a danger. And the psychiatrists were like, listen, he's got a narcissistic personality and we don't think we can do anything to stop him from killing. So there's some people in agreement there. So it looks like next year when he goes up for parole, he's probably not going anywhere. It also led to a change in the laws and investigations. So basically the Ministry for Justice in France at the time said, okay, if you're on the sex offenders list, we have your DNA and it's all to be cross-checked. So now there's a DNA database for people who are sexual offenders.
And they also said another rule that came in was like, if you are a policeman in France, you have to do some work. That was the other rule that came in.
So that is Guy Georges.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's been a fair few fucking hours, isn't it?
Holy moly.
Because there was so little out there. We're just like ruffling around any bit of the internet where we can try and find something.
So I don't know who we're going to do next.
No, we've got a Q&A one we're going to record next.
Oh yeah, we're recording that tomorrow. That might pop out at the pop out. What am I saying? Sorry, Lynn, I've popped out. That'll be out soon. We've got your questions. Mm-hmm. We'll answer those.
Yeah, and then we'll pick another one. I hope this comes out soon. I'm on tour. Please come and see me. Some of them are sold out. Oh, and some of them, I think by the time this comes out, my next leg of the tour, the autumn tour, will be either about to go on sale or on sale. So I'll be going to the places I haven't been to, like London, Brighton, Bristol.
I'm in Chester on the same day as you.
Oh yeah, doing that festival. That'll be good.
Sold out, which is nice.
Amazing.
Nice little gig.
I think some people are doing a twofer from messages I've had. Come see you and then come see
That'll
me.
be a nice little all-killer day out for them.
Lovely day.
Yes, it's a little festival at Chester. I can't remember what it's called.
Garden Social, which is a great venue.
Run by comedian Danny McLaughlin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, mate, come and see it, mate. It's My impression of Danny, mate.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you very soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.